name of the Embassy of Pakistan, a very warm welcome to you and thank you for your time. We will begin the proceedings with the recitation of the Holy Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله العظيم. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move forward, let us remember the victims of Santa Fe High School shooting. In that horrific incident, 10 precious lives were lost and 13 were wounded. Sabika Sheikh, a bright Pakistani student, also lost her life in that incident, unfortunate incident. So I would request everyone for a moment of silence for victims of violence. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to share the blessings of Ramadan and hear from our panel of eminent speakers who have been involved in promotion of interfaith harmony and shared humanity. To speak on the significance of interfaith harmony, I would invite Ambassador Aizaz Ahmad Chaudhry to the podium to share his thoughts. Ambassador Chaudhry.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It is my indeed pleasure and privilege to have this opportunity to welcome you to Interfaith Iftar. This is my second year that I am hosting this event, which has a very special significance, of course, for all of us. But for me, this assumes an even particular significance because this might be my very last event that I am hosting as Ambassador of Pakistan. I will be completing my term next Tuesday, 29th. So it is my unique privilege that I've started with such an auspicious event and I'm ending also with the equally auspicious occasion. Let me briefly share with you my own thoughts on this. Three ideas that I believe are central to interfaith harmony. Peace, love, and tolerance. I know that for every faith, every religion, peace is an important facet. I don't know about other. Can you ask this gentleman not to make noise and also the other persons who are talking very loud? I think I remember that I grew up in a Sunni Islamic tradition, and the earliest of the teachings for me came from my mother, who was a very devoted Muslim, and she taught me the basics of Quran and the basics of Islamic way of life. She taught me that I must start every work that I do with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, remembering our Creator with two of his attributes, Ar-Rahman, which means that he is most benevolent, and Ar-Rahim, which means that he is most merciful. Benevolence and mercy. And we repeat that every day in and out. I also know that I was taught early on, as almost all Pakistanis of every faith do, is to greet each other with Assalamu Alaikum, which is peace be upon you. And the person who returns this compliment is also supposed to say that peace be upon you too. Such are the teachings which have made us what we are. It is a sad irony that some misguided elements from within the Muslim world, as indeed from the rest of the world, have taken it upon themselves to bring such a bad name to my faith, as indeed other faiths do. They do not represent any faith for that matter. The grain of every faith, in my view, is peace. I don't think that any religion propagates violence. It's the peace which remains the most central theme. The other theme that I think has come to is love. I think that's another attribute that is taught by almost every faith. Of course, it comes mostly from Christians that you hear, love your neighbor, but I think every faith, and I hope the learned scholars from different faiths would reflect on how their faith preaches love and not hatred. The third element is tolerance. I know that in Quran they say lakum deenukum waliya deen, which means that everybody will have his own way of life. And we have to live to learn and live in peace and mutual tolerance. I think it was President JFK, if I recall correctly and quickly, who said that the world peace, like community peace, does not mean that everyone loves the other man. It only means that we live with each other in mutual tolerance. I think he said it at some university convocation in 1963. When I was in my undergrad studies, there was an essay, it was in our English subject, What Life Has Taught Me. This was written by Bertrand Russell. And as you know, Bertrand Russell has gone through, Alessa, welcome. Please have a seat. Yeah, thank you. Had gone through a lot, and he had discovered that the central lesson that life had taught him was tolerance. If humanity can learn this value, then probably humanity has reached its nirvana, its ultimate phase. My colleague Shahnazar just recited a verse from Holy Quran, an ayah, وَلَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. This surah, thank you for reciting that, has been a philosophy of life, at least for me. And I presume it might be true of other faiths too. We will hear our learned scholars. Our Creator swears by the time. And as you know, the time, sometimes they say that don't abuse time because time might be God. The sense of time is in its timelessness. So God swears by that and says that the man is in loss or man is perishing. Which is an ultimate reality. We all know that we will all perish. Except for those who do four things. Congressman, very welcome, Congressman on the council. Very welcome. Please have a seat here. Congressman, before you came, I just narrated my own thoughts on three elements that I think are common to every faith: peace, love, and tolerance. I'm not the last bit about my interpretation of the philosophy of life summed up in a verse, in an ayah that was recited by my colleague in the beginning. So we are all perishable except for those who do four things. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا those who make commitment. Now naturally everybody has his own way of making commitment to the cause that he or she wants to serve. Second, وَعَمَلُ الصَّالِحَاتِ, those who do the right deeds. Now, what are right deeds? We really don't know what are right deeds. It could be something right for you and may not be right for someone else. I think your conscience tells you what is right. I don't think you need a mufti or a judge to tell you. Your conscience will tell. Every man's conscience tells him or her that this thing is right or wrong. وَالتَّوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, stand for what is right. This land is rich in the tradition of people who have stood up. And I know that in my own country, there have been people who stood up for what was right and made it work. وَالتَّوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, and those who can practice patience in the face of adversities beyond your control. So 4 things: make a commitment, do the right thing, what your conscience tells you, stand up for what is right, and then be patient and accept what you cannot change. I presume that this is not just the philosophy of life for Muslims. I believe there may be similar thoughts in all other faiths. These faiths all are meant to bring us together, not to make us hate each other. And that is why we celebrate every year Interfaith during the month of Ramadan. We regard it as a blessing, as a month of blessing, but we're very happy that scholars of 6 faiths, religions are here with us tonight, and they will all share with us their own thoughts as they did last year. Some of them are new, the others are the same speakers. And we are also very happy that Congressman Andre Carson, who is a fabulous speaker, I've heard him so many times, a man of conviction and passion. I'm glad he could join us. I'm also happy that Ambassador Alice Wells is here with us, Assistant Secretary of State. She's been very kind. She's has done tremendous amount of service, which I want to recognize for bringing Pakistan and United States closer. Ambassador Wells, before you came in, while you were walking, I had already mentioned that this would be probably my last event of the in my present position, and what a privilege it is to be posted in this country and to serve this great country, United States of America, and bring it to my own country, Pakistan, closer and strengthen this relationship. So thank you very much. God bless you all. God bless Pakistan and God bless United States of America.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I will briefly introduce and then invite our distinguished speakers one by one. Our first speaker is Ms. Jo Reed. She is Director, Mid-Atlantic Community Relation in the Soka Gakkai International USA. She oversees local activities that support the SGI USA Buddhist Movement for Peace, Culture and Education. These activities include interfaith dialogue and community service, exhibits and panel discussions and cultural events that promote the art as an expression of our shared humanity. Ms. Reed also helps provide spiritual support for some 1,400 members of the SGI USA faith community in Northern Virginia. Ms. Reed retired recently from a career in advocacy and program management for older Americans. Ms. Jo Reed.
Good evening, and Ramadan Mubarak. Your Excellency, Ambassador Chowdhury, First Secretary Shah Nazar Khan, and distinguished guests, I am honored to be with you again this year, representing the Soka Gakkai International, or SGI, USA Buddhist community. It is wonderful to reconnect with old friends as well as to encounter new ones. I have to say, I'm very sad to hear that Ambassador Chowdhury, this may be our last opportunity to spend time with you, because truly you're a very inspiring figure. Thank you. So renewing and deepening friendships is what this event is all about, it seems to me, along with sharing with each other elements of our unique faith traditions that can generate seeds of peace. So to that end, I would like to reflect briefly on the concept of the middle way. Throughout the 2,500-year history of Buddhism, the concept of the middle way has seen multiple interpretations. But simply, it describes the way or path that transcends and reconciles the duality that characterizes most thinking. In the broadest sense, the middle way refers to the Buddha's enlightened view of life and also the actions or attitudes that will create happiness for oneself and others. It is found in the ongoing dynamic effort to apply Buddhist wisdom to the questions and challenges of life and society. It represents the quest for a way of life that would give the greatest value to human existence and help relieve the world of suffering. The great sage Nichiren described life as an elusive reality that transcends both the words and concepts of existence and non-existence. It is neither existence nor non-existence, yet exhibits the qualities of both. In other words, life itself is the ultimate expression of the harmony of contradictions. Like the lotus flower that blooms unsullied by the muddy waters in which it grows, Nichiren maintained that human beings possess tremendous potential and the life condition of Buddhahood, which they can bring forth in direct proportion to the depth of confusion and suffering they face. He encouraged individuals to perceive the inherent dignity of all life, their own and others, and strive to make this the guiding principle of their actions. From this perspective, to pursue the middle way is not a compromise. It is to bravely confront life's challenges while summoning the transformative strength and wisdom of Buddhahood from within one's life to create harmony. Moreover, the middle way does not equate to society's definition of what may be accepted or considered normal at any given time. Rather, it transcends subjective values and accords with something more fundamental, our humanity. The vision of the SGI is that individuals committed to this sustained effort to orient their lives in a positive direction will inevitably begin to move society itself in the direction of happiness and harmonious coexistence. SGI President Daisaku Ikeda writes that the middle way is a process of, quote, living and making one's mark on society while constantly interrogating one's own actions to ensure that they accord with the path of humanity. It is easy to be discouraged by the violence and grotesque imbalances of the era in which we live. The ugliness and divisiveness of our times naturally leads us to seek a guiding principle for the peace and fulfillment of humankind. The middle way of reverence for the dignity and sanctity of life, making the welfare of people and the planet the starting point and final goal of every human endeavor, can provide a path forward. I am certain this is a goal those of every faith tradition here this evening share. And I look forward to another year of working together with you to actualize it. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Our next speaker for today is Reverend David Milam. Please. Reverend Milam currently serves as the co-facilitator of the Loudoun County Interfaith Clergy Group and served in his National Capital Presbytery as the Urban Ministries Team Chair and also Dismantling Racism Team. Reverend Milam has been the pastor of St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, Percival, Virginia since 2005. He was ordained to ministry in the Presbyterian Church, USA in 1985. And he has a Master of Divinity degree from Princeton Theological Seminary and a Doctor of Ministry from San Francisco Theological Seminary.
Greetings, everybody. It's really a delight to be here, and I'm honored, Your Excellency. Thank you so much for having this event and for being able to be a part of it. Ramadan Bhakti is, I hope, the good reading to say to you. If I think about peace in the Christian tradition, of course, I'm going to think about Jesus. And the most riveting thing about Jesus that he said about peace was that we should, if our enemy strikes us on the one cheek, we should turn the other also, which is really a very practical kind of thing to do. I think in his day, to turn the other cheek was to offer the other person a cheek that would actually give insult to injury, because it would be to demean the person. It would kind of in some way make for a sense of shared humanity, even in front of the enemy. But I think in a very practical way, what Jesus was teaching was a sense of trust. His peace is something that invites us to trust. Trust is a very wonderful piece of life to have. I know here at the embassy, I'm sure that you deal in great many ways in providing trust, receiving trust, and that is the way that peace comes in relationships. There's an English game that used to be played, and in the English game was on television. There would be a moment of the game when the two final contestants would be at a point where they got to steal or split. The end of the game was called Steal or Split. And there was a $100,000 prize, and the two contestants who were left could decide whether to say they were going to split the prize with the other contestant and each get $50,000, or they could decide to take all 100 by deceiving the other person and taking the prize themselves. If both deceived, they would get nothing. And so what happened, more often than not, was that both contestants would say split. And especially if they touched one another, they shook hands or had some other kind of exchange of touch, they were more likely to exchange that kind of trust. Last night at our church, we had a man who is African American, and he is a blues musician. His name was Daryl Davis. And he came and spoke to us about meeting with members of a white supremacist hate group called the Ku Klux Klan. And he has had times where he has reached out and befriended members of Ku Klux Klan as a way of sharing his ability to listen, to befriend, to ask the question, why do you hate me when you don't even know me? Is what his major question was. By his willingness to turn the other cheek, so to speak, he has had 200 people who have befriended him who decided to leave behind their white supremacy and to be tolerant and friendly with Daryl Davis. That's the kind of peace, I believe, that Jesus encourages us to, a sense of peace where we have some sense that by the practice of reciprocal relationships and the adding of those reciprocal relationships together so that if there's an abundance of that, then whole societies actually could live with that peace. So I thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit from my sense of the Christian tradition, and it is a joy to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Milam. Next, I'll invite Nanak Lahori. Mr. Nanak Lahori is Director of Interfaith Conference of Metropolitan Washington, D.C. and Director of United Hindu and Jain Temples Association. He was the President of Chinmaya Mission Washington Regional Center, and he has taught mathematics at Bombay University and University of Maryland. He also worked for NASA, Intelsat, and Federal Aviation Administration. Mr. Nanak Lahori.
Well, friends, first of all, Ramadan Mubarak to all of you. And I think my voice will get all right after a few sentences. Yeah, I'm Mr. Chaudhary and distinguished guests. I'm in fact very delighted to be here like the previous years. So some of you, my face must be quite familiar, your voice too. As you all know, Ramadan is a period of self-purification, self-control, self-discipline, reflection, introspection. All that is the purpose of Ramadan. And this is, I think all of you have been a week into it, at least a week into it approximately. And so I'm sure spiritually you are at the higher level than during the regular life. So I picked up one message from Bhagavad Gita, which is really suitable only when the people are a little spiritually heightened. One of the psychological truths about human nature is that we learn by copying others. We are really the imitators in a way. I think it will become clear as we go on. In Bhagavad Gita, the holy scripture of Hindus, I'm sure practically all of you have heard the word Bhagavad Gita, which is like Bible. In chapter 3, verse 21, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, a disciple and guru relationship, that whatever a great man does, others imitate. Whatever standards he sets in, others follow. Now, students cannot be disciplined unless the teacher behaves well. Lower officers, lower category, cannot be really honest if at the senior level there is corruption. Children's behavior depends entirely upon the standards of purity and culture of the parents. Even to be honest, a man like me, even in the stock market, when Warren Buffett talks, I listen. So that's our nature. Let me share my personal story. Like most ambitious teenagers, I was also striving for excellence during my teenager life. The year was 1954. I was 17 years old. I saw a large picture of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru in Times of India on the front page, smoking. And that was it. I viewed that picture and it struck me like a hypnotic suggestion, and I said to myself, that's it. My auto suggestion was that smart, successful people smoke. See, this is what we give the suggestions to ourselves. So that was my suggestion to myself, looking at Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister, whom we had heard from childhood, that smart, successful people smoke. So needless to say, that I started smoking. And I smoked for nearly 25 years. And stopped in 1980 with the help of one organization. This was from 1954 to 1980, with the help of one organization in Washington, D.C. It was called Smoke Enders. And I became free from it. Now the other side was, in the meanwhile, I paid a very big price for my smoking. For my youngest brother, I was a role model. As I say, we follow, we repeat, we imitate. He copied everything what I did. Even writing, he could write the check signature exactly like me. And so he imitated smoking too. I tried my best to help him to stop it. All the pep talk and even the Nicorette tablets which I sent him from here, they didn't help. In 2001, at the age of 51, he passed away. The cause was smoking. I felt guilty for a long time. But then I realized that even I was ignorant. I learned to forgive myself. So friends, the message is that we have to be good role models, because there are a lot of, for every one of us, there are a lot of people who are following us. Our children, our friends, whatever they see, they like to copy. And we have got to be cautious about picking up the right role models also. Anyway, to end this talk with a positive note, I will chant one shloka of peace from Upanishads. First I'll chant and then I'll get the meaning. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinam Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhave Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The meaning is that may everyone be happy, may all be free from illness, may everyone see auspiciousness around themselves, good thing around themselves, and may no one suffer. Let there be peace from the natural forces, peace from the outer forces, and peace from within, whatever messenger was talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lahori. Now I will invite Mr. Walter Ruby. Mr. Walter Ruby presently serves as chairman of the Greater Washington Muslim Jewish Forum. He has worked as a journalist for more than 40 years, and since 2007 he has been an activist in Muslim-Jewish relations. Over the past decade, he has organized many events bringing thousands of Jews and Muslims in over 30 countries on 5 continents, including members of mosques and synagogues, as well as Muslims and Jewish students, young leaders, and women groups together. He is presently writing a book about the friendship and partnership between the Chief Rabbi Joseph Levi and Imam Izzuddin Elzer of Florence, an Israeli and a Palestinian. Mr. Walter Ruby.
His Excellency, Mr. Ambassador, and honored guests, it's a great honor for me to be here, and especially following so many scholars, because I don't consider myself a scholar. I'm not a scholar of either religion, but I I've had this great privilege over the last 10 years to be working in Muslim-Jewish relations. And I've been uplifted and strengthened in my commitment to this work as I've seen so many wonderful Muslims and Jews working harmoniously together as an expression of the reality that our two faiths, which are often seen as adversarial, in fact share core values. And the two most important in my own mind of these shared values are the commitment in both faiths to improve conditions in society and helping people in need. That's one. And the second one is the commitment to achieving peace and to saving human life. So to my mind, it's the common moral imperative in the heart of both the faiths that has inspired Jews and Muslims to connect with each other and to build an alliance that has been far more successful than anyone would have believed even 10 years ago. What is it based on? Well, there's these two terms, tikkun olam in Hebrew and islah in Arabic. One meaning tikkun olam, meaning repairing the world, and islah meaning reform. Not quite the same, but very close. The term tikkun olam, and all about making society a more just place and helping people in need. The tikkun olam the term is included in the Aleinu, a Jewish prayer that is traditionally recited 3 times a day and is said to be written by the biblical prophet Joshua. The phrase tikkun olam is used to mean to perfect the world under God's sovereignty. And in the Mishnah, the first major book of Rabbinic Judaism, it's used to indicate that a practice should be followed not because it is required by law, but because it helps to avoid social chaos. In the modern era, in Reform, Reconstructionist, Conservative, and other forms of Judaism, it really is the idea that Jews bear a moral responsibility not only to their own welfare, but also for the welfare of society at large. And of course, Islam, I don't need to tell you all, is an Arabic word, also in the sense to improve, to better, and to put something into a better position, and so forth. So the commonality between these two things is what's been so inspirational to me in my work. And to see individual Muslims and Jews, we have this common word, tzedakah, or tzedakah, that you give a portion of your income to the betterment of society, to the community. And that's one piece of it, but there's also this other piece that actually, this feeling that I personally need to go out and help those in need. And we see this, for example, in the feeding the hungry. And as we know, because we're here for Ramadan, Allah Ta'ala wants every believer to feel the pain of those who do not have enough to eat. And that's why he made it compulsory to fast every day during the month of Ramadan. And in another hadith, the Prophet says, he is not a believer who eats his fill while his neighbor beside him goes hungry. In the Torah, we have the same commitment to feeding the hungry. In the prophet Isaiah says, is it not to share your bread with the hungry and to bring the homeless poor into your house when you see the naked to cover him? Then shall your light break through like the dawn. I've personally taken part in many Muslim-Jewish joint feeding the hungry events where Jews and Muslims will go out to homeless shelters or just go out to the street and feed homeless and hungry people. And I have a dear friend, Zamir Hassan, originally from Pakistan, who is the head of Muslims Against Hunger. And he says, basically, he's a very practical guy. He says, look, it's better if Jews and Muslims come together to do the holy work of feeding the hungry rather than sitting there, having theological discussions or, let's get out there, put on aprons, serve nourishing food to the homeless and hungry, and that will bring us close together and feel the shared power of our faiths, the shared moral values. And I think that's very, very true. And of course, both faiths see the moral imperative to help those in need as going further than just feeding the hungry. Psalm 82:3-4 says, defend the poor and orphan, deal justly with the destitute, rescue the weak and the needy. And Shahil el-Bukhari says, visit the sick, feed the hungry, free the captive. And to me has been one of the most inspirational things for me as a Jew working with the American Muslim community is to see that Muslim doctors, dentists, nurses, and other medical personnel routinely volunteer to offer free health screenings and actual work to helping people of all backgrounds without insurance. This is something that I've learned from the Muslim community, and there's, as you all well know, there's Muslim clinics across the country and in masjids where the doctors will come out and volunteer their Sundays to help to serve people without insurance. And what I've managed to do in some cases, in a few cases, is to bring Jewish doctors and dentists out to take part in that. One of my dear friends, Dr. Maksud Chaudhry, who's here sitting here tonight, has been involved in this work, and in 2016 I was privileged to work with him where we brought Jewish dentists and Muslim dentists to his clinic, Dr. Maksud Chaudhry's clinic in Falls Church, Virginia, to offer free dental work to recently arrived Syrian refugees. And they were doing all kinds of work, drilling and pulling teeth and all kinds of complicated procedures, which normally would have cost thousands of dollars for these people. Of course, they didn't have any money. And I remember one woman just crying and said, I think she said to one of the doctors, she said, "Thank you for taking away my pain." And she'd been suffering, she'd been feeling this for months, the refugee camps and here, and so that to me was really, really a holy moment. And so I'm proud to be here with Dr. Maksud Chaudhry tonight, a dear friend and a son of Pakistan. And had the chance actually I was privileged to speak at a hearing a few years ago before the county planning commission out in Fairfax County to make sure that the McLean Islamic Center got their authorization to move into their new home. So I just want to move on very quickly because I have very little time to say the other one that I wanted just to bring to your attention is in both Arabic and Hebrew. The Mishnah Sanhedrin says, "Whoever destroys a single life is considered by Scripture to have destroyed the whole world, and whoever saves a single life is considered by Scripture to have saved the whole world." And as we know in the Quran, it says, "Whoever kills a soul, unless for a soul or for corruption done in the land, it is as he has slain mankind entirely. And whoever saves one, it is as though he saved mankind entirely." And folks, I had no idea, and I don't know how many of you all had in this, I didn't know this was one of the things that inspired me in Judaism the most. I never knew it was in the Quran until I was at an event, something like this one, where they had a young man from Bangladesh in New York, this was about 10 years ago, who had jumped into the fray. Several young Jewish boys were being beaten up by neo-Nazi hoodlums. He jumped in and he got some two black eyes and a mess, but he was honored by the Muslim community, and this was said at that event. And I said, my God, I had no idea. And I was so inspired. And so we need very much to know what's in the other's tradition, and when we find out those commonalities, I think it moves us so far. And if Jews and Muslims can heal our own divide while saying together a firm no to the voices spreading fear, discord, and bigotry, we can set an example that will inspire people everywhere to affirm the sanctity of every life. So let us, all of us, Jews, Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, resolve to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ruby. We have 6 minutes for Adhan, and 2 speakers. So first I will request Dr. Rajwant Singh to come on stage. Dr. Singh is founder and chairman of Sikh Council on Religion and Education, and he has been involved in interfaith activities for many decades now. So,
good evening. Ramadan Mubarak. His Excellency Ambassador Chaudhry and Assistant Secretary of State and all the distinguished guests. I'm speaking on behalf of the Sikh community, and we have a very wonderful presence of the Sikhs in Pakistan. There are 14 to 30,000 Sikhs who are turban-wearing Sikhs in Pakistan. And there are 24 historical shrines which are being maintained by the Pakistan government, and there are hundreds of other shrines which are being maintained. And so we had the privilege to present the book a couple of weeks ago to Ambassador Chaudhry. The book is Lost Heritage, Sikh Heritage in Pakistan. And I just would go very quickly because we need to honor the time. In the Sikh tradition, we have the scriptures which includes the writings of Baba Farid, who is a spiritual teacher born in the Islamic tradition, but his writings are part of the Sikh tradition. And in one of the hymns, responding to what the Ambassador has presented us today, the challenge, love, tolerance, and peace, the words of Baba Farid, Jeto Priya di Sikh, Yao Nathaye Kahida, that if you really want to make sure that you come close to God, then don't break anyone's heart. And that's what establishes peace. And then Guru Nanak says, the founder of the Sikh faith, was born in Nankana Sahib in Pakistan. And he says, Sab mein jot jot hai soye, tiste chanan sab mein chanan hoye. That each one of us is a reflection of the Creator. The Creator's light is present in each one of us. If I were to claim that I have more light than you, then I'm at fault. And then he further goes and says, Hamane change bura nahi koi. That I cannot have this sense of superiority and say that I am better than the other person and then claim myself to be a religious person or a spiritual person. Those two things cannot go together, according to Guru Nanak. And the last is the last Guru of the Sikhs, Guru Gobind Singh. He said, Jin prem kiyo tin hi prabh payo. Only those can come close to God, Vaheguru, or what we call God Vaheguru. And Vaheguru can only embrace you if he sees, if the Creator sees that you have been acting with the spirit of love. And I just want to say that I had the privilege to go to Narowal, the place where Guru Nanak lived for 17 years towards the end of his life. And if you really want to witness peace, that's the place to go. You know what you will see? A Sikh shrine, a Sikh Gurdwara. And when Guru Nanak left this world, the Muslim admirers and the Hindu admirers had a fight. They said, we want to bury him according to Islamic tradition, and Hindus said, no, we want to do the last rites according to Hindu tradition. And guess what? In the Sikh shrine, you see a Hindu ceremony being done, and there is a remembrance of that, and then there is a Muslim remembrance of Guru Nanak. That's the presence of peace one needs to witness in Pakistan. And the last thing I would mention, that just a few days ago in Peshawar, the Sikh community, a very small, tiny Sikh community, has hosted a big iftar dinner for their Muslim neighbors. That's the image which needs to be really made viral. That, you know, the image that we hear that everything is bad about Pakistan or everything is bad about Islamic world, whereas you see this wonderful images of people coming together, working together. And lastly, Guru Nanak's 550th birth anniversary is coming next year. And what we plan to do, I've already talked to the people in Pakistan. We will plant 550 trees at the birthplace of Guru Nanak in Nankana Sahib, and 550 trees where he lived at the last 17 years. So this will be our gift to Pakistan, and we want to plant more trees and to really spread the message of peace and tolerance. And thank you so much. I have invited my daughter to just recite a couple of lines, because I felt that young people need to also be involved in this talk that we do. We go away, but these are the young people who we're going to have to carry. So, Sahaj.
So this is a hymn by Guru Nanak, who was our first Guru. Vich duniya se kamaya tandar gaya basan paya kaunanik vidaya nanak vidaya achal chalai nah chalai nah kao katara kar sake साहिब राखे त्योरा है इस लोपी का जियो टल पले बिन तेल दीवा क्यों जले बिन तेल दीवा क्यों जले विच दुनिया सेव कमाया तादर गए बैसन पाया कहो नानक बाबा विदाया।
It's like that if you really want to go victorious from this world, if you want to have your life be celebrated, then do something good for others.
Thank you, Dr. Singh and his daughter. Now it's time for Adhan. We have Honorable Congressman Andre Carson here and one of our Muslim speaker. They will continue after the iftar and prayer break before dinner. So we will take a pause, but I will invite Ali Salah Khwaja. He is a member of Adam Center and US Army Reserve to recite Azan. I think it's time in DC. It's okay.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.
Imam Khalid Sharif, and he has been associated with this mosque, the historic Nations Mosque, Masjid Muhammad, for the last 47 years. So I invite Albert Sabir to express his words.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The name is with God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Assalamu alaikum. Ramadan Mubarak. I am grateful, we are grateful to be here this evening. We thank the Honorable Ambassador Azhar Ahmad Chaudhry for the invitation. I extend the greeting from our community and from our leader, Imam Talib Sharif, who's on travel. He called us, he sincerely regrets not having to be here and wanted to be with you and wanted me to extend that warm consideration for inviting him and having us here. But I'm the replacement, and I'm also grateful to have with me my wife of 47 years, also here with me, Joyce. I'm trying to first start with Quran and then make connections so that we can see if we could build on what the Ambassador has already laid out as a sound foundation, and that is peace and love. This is Ramadan, so it is important that we read the Quran. The Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan. So I'll start with that, and they'll see the first connection that I believe I see, and again, you may see also or other connection. O ye who believe, this is Surah 2, chapter 183. O ye who believe, O ye who believe, fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you, that you may learn self-restraint. Now there are several connections here, but the one that jumps out at me is that, wow, as it was prescribed to those before me. Wow, so that's a connection with my Jewish brothers, my Christian brothers and sisters, my Jewish brothers and sisters. That's the connection. And with others who were also giving this prescription of fasting. Now, the other thing that jumps out at me is that prescription. I said prescription, you said prescribe, but in prescription, you prescribe, you can see prescription. And of course, the doctor, in this case, Allah gives us a prescription. And so, again, it is so grateful here to be with you and to share with you. And I just said one earlier, and that is the coming together of families. Because the love and the peace, if it doesn't start in the household, and it starts to the neighbors, and the community, and the city and the towns, and the nations, right? The states and the nations, and the world. So we have to look at that in terms of that prescription that benefits the love and the connection and the peace in the family. So when I mentioned my wife for 47 years, anybody who's been married 1 year, and y'all know, it's a whole lot of prescription has to be going on. We maintain the peace and the love. So again, that we build on that. Now I also want to read one more, and that is Ramadan is the month. This is Surah 2, Ayah 185. Ramadan is the month in which was sent down the Quran as a guide to mankind, also clear signs for guidance and judgment between right and wrong. So every one of you who is present during that month suspend it in fasting, but if anyone is ill or on a journey, the prescribed period should be made by days later. Allah intends every facility for you. He does not want to put you due to difficulties. He wants you to complete the prescribed period and to glorify Him in that He has guided you, and perchance you shall be grateful. So in that, there is a lot. But the guidance, and that is what the book is, the guidance. So we need the guidance so that we can move toward that peace and that love. Now, the book also says that to get to heaven, we should obey Allah and His Messenger. So that means obey the guidance and obey His Messenger. So if we do that, then that love and that peace will come. Now for those who are Muslim, this month of Ramadan is an ideal situation for us because what we ask the question is, those things that bother us, and we try to make sense of it, it is during this month that we can get answers. So if we want to get answers for those things that bother us, we pray for those answers during this month. And what will happen is that hopefully it will generate our best behavior, our best conduct, and in so being the best example, so that that love and that peace will generate and force itself through our neighbors, through our city, through our country, through our nation, through states, and the world. I want to say to you that recently I was on a visit with Imam Talib Sharif and about 30 others, and I want you to participate with me on this one, because I was in the Vatican about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we were dialoguing with folkloric community, or I would say folkloric movement. It's a Catholic movement, and they close with this. And I was there right in front of us. You know, oftentimes we say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, with God mercy, the benefactor, the merciful Redeemer. And this is what they said. So everybody stand up, and this is what they say. I want you to repeat after me now. It's very simple. Love God, love humanity. Amen.
Thank you, Albert Sadiq. We are fortunate and honored to have among us Congressman Andre Carson and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. First, I'll invite Honorable Congressman Andre Carson to come to the rostrum and make his remarks.
Ramadan Mubarak. Let's eat. Want to thank you. Want to thank Ambassador Chaudhry, Madam Wells, Chairwoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who has been a friend and a mentor and an advocate for Pakistan and an advocate on behalf of Muslims. It's always good to see our great spiritual leaders who are here representing cadre of beliefs, schools of thought. And, you know, Ramadan is a time of introspection, reflection, being self-critical, even guarding what goes into our portals or our gates, mouth gate, the ear gate, eye gate, watching what we take in visually, watching the criticism, the naysaying, as Brother Imam mentioned, that goes into our ears, watching what goes out of our mouths, negativity, backbiting, slander, gossip, watching what goes into our mouths. It's a physical practice, but it has spiritual implications. And even on Capitol Hill, as we are transitioning, and America is transitioning for our eyes, there's talk of wealth at the top and despair at the bottom. Ramadan reminds us as we abstain from food, carbs, sweets for just a few hours, there are billions around the world who never have the choices we have. So in order for us to move forward as one humanity, let us remember our commonality and our practices and the golden rule, which is a tenet of all of our beliefs. Jazakallah khair, Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you, Congressman Andre Carson. Now I'll invite Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee to share her thoughts.
Ramadan Mubarak to each and every one of you. I am always pleased to look out into the audience in a time of Ramadan and to see the sea of wonderful humanity and to come to this service and dinner and see the men and women of faith who have come to recognize the humanity of all of us. I'm delighted to be here with Congressman Andre Carson, who has made history in his presence here as a Muslim American member of the United States Congress, which I'm always glad to say, but also the first Muslim American to serve on the House Intelligence Committee. That is worthy of acknowledgement. So I take a quote from a gentleman that you might recognize. The value of tolerance is essential for the world to live in peace and harmony. It is this value that the forces of darkness and extremism fear the most. Thank you, Ambassador Chaudhry. I will take this back to the Hill. Interestingly enough, today we were debating the National Defense Authorization. And I will be very frank of some of the issues that we are confronting dealing with Pakistan are based not so much on fact, but they're based on the misunderstanding of the long-standing history that the United States has had with Pakistan. And we have had some moments where our mutual survival depended on each other. Someone, I think it is unclassified at this point, reminded me of the U2 circumstance. I'm reminded of the treasure spent by those in the Pakistani military as it relates to fighting the Taliban, the border in Afghanistan, or fighting terrorism. So I guess in this season of tolerance, and as I've come to understand Ramadan, of charity, of giving to others, of unselfishly recognizing the difficulties of life of others and helping them. In this time wherein my past weekend had to be in a posture of mourning, the 10 lives lost in Santa Fe, and a beautiful young 17-year-old from Pakistan, and watching her host family cry over her death as she was their natural daughter or sister. And so our linkage is far deeper, sometimes in tragedy and sometimes in joy. So I think if I had wishes for this season of Ramadan, it is for us to build on that, for the United States, as co-chair of the Pakistan Caucus, and Pakistan to get back on track and to be the kind of partners or allies that certain moments in history have shown us to be. relationship between the United States and Pakistan and the recognition of the contributions of the Pakistani American community should be a vital part of the building blocks of democracy and tolerance around the world. So I wish that for this season, as a member of the United States Congress, I look forward to working with Congressman Carson and other supporters of Pakistan in the United States Congress and the House and Senate, and those who feel challenged that both Pakistan in its response to the actions of the United States and the United States actions can be negotiated, and that diplomacy can be again alive and well, and that we can realize that the people of our respective nations relish democracy and tolerance and freedom and justice, and that we as the governments of those peoples owe them that. And we should work for it every day of our lives. Thank you so very much in this season. May the blessings be upon you.
Thank you, Congresswoman Lee. With this, we conclude the program. The long wait is over and the food is ready. So you can enjoy food. Thank you.